Hey everybody, my name's Ammon Young. I decided to interview a very good friend of mine by the name of John Olson. In 1891, his grandfather came over here and purchased the farm that his family now owns in Young Ward. Is the type of business that they had is, like I said, a farm slash ranch. Um, the products that they would use are what we would call a cash crop. Those back in that time they were sugar beets, peas, corn. They also had milk cows, beef cows, turkeys, chickens, um, and they grew alfalfa, grass, wheat, barley to help feed the cows during the winter time. Um, the opportunity for their business is, like I said, it came from their experience handed down from generation to generation from Denmark as farmers and ranchers. The mentors in farming, and his mentor was his father, and it is also passed down. I mean, it's a family business, it's a trade passed down from father to son. Um, I asked John, I was like, when did you start working on the farm? And he just kind of smiled and he said, when I was about 3 years old. And he's like, and I've been working it ever since, never retire. And I was like, well, what did you do when you were 3? And he said, well, he went to move the turkeys. So his father sent him out into the field to move the turkeys from one pasture to another. And he got scared and started crying. And the turkeys started following him, getting closer. And so he started running. And the turkeys were all following him. And he ran to the right pasture. And by the time he got to the right pasture, he was screaming his head off. And his dad finally came and saved him after he got the turkeys to the right pasture. So I thought that was pretty interesting and pretty funny to hear. The resources that were critical to their success was the seeds that they get from their previous crops. So from their wheat, their barley, and their alfalfa, those were critical to them to have so they could plant for the next season. If they didn't keep some of the seeds, then they weren't able to grow anything and they wouldn't be able to feed their cattle. So those were the real critical resources that they needed. Um, as far as the market goes, is the sugar beets, sweet peas, and corn they take into plants here that were here in the valley, and they would process them and sell them to those plants. Um, Another market or customer you could say that they had were their neighbors, is because John's family had milk and eggs, they would trade with different families for different things that they needed. So um, it was a very close knit community. Um, the way that they got a lot of their products to market was by truck or by wagon. Is John's family used horses quite often, and they had one old truck, he said, that they could use and to haul in the sugar beets after they'd cut them and picked them by hand to haul them into the plant. Also, a milk truck would come and pick up the milk that they'd have in 10-gallon cans from their milk cows and take it in and redistribute it to the community and pay them a little bit for the milk. Um, as far as finance goes, is they never really took out a loan for their business. If they didn't have the money, they just made do with what they did have. As far as how the company or the farm is doing today, is it was a smaller farm that could sustain a family back when John was a young boy and a young man. But now with inflation and different things, the farm is too small to support a family in our day and age. And so I asked John, I was like, well, what do you do with it now? And he said, the only way you can quit a farm is to either rent it out or sell it. So that's what he does now, is he rents out the farmland that he has. And when I asked him, I was like, what were the keys to your success as a farmer? And he said the biggest thing was not having to hire out outside labor. As him, his brothers, and his father and his uncles were the ones that worked the farm, and they never had to hire anybody to come in and do anything. If something broke, they figured it out and fixed it. I asked him what one of his big failures were, and he said they planted the wrong crop. So they planted it's called Sudan grass. It's a fast-growing grass, and their neighbor kept watering the fields, and so they couldn't get in to cut it. and it grew to be about 14 feet tall. And so the stalks were no longer nutritious for their cattle, and they wouldn't eat it. So they lost a crop there, and that was a big mistake that they learned, to be careful what they planted. Um, the other keys to their success, that he said, is hard work, and he said especially the love of the land, looking forward no matter what. And the one that I liked was, he said, make the best out of what you have. And it's kind of tied in what we've been learning in class.